And now we move to our In Focus section, and you should definitely keep a lookout for this, literally, because we are talking to Scot Adams and Zoe Ortiz from Google about the aforementioned and previously demonstrated Lookout.
We are joined by two wonderful people from Google. From the Lookout department, we have Zoe and Scot. Guys, would you please introduce yourselves to our listeners so we can talk about the wonderful product, and that would be Lookout.
Sure. My name is Scot Adams, and I am the product manager on the Google Lookout team. Let me go ahead and hand it over to Zoe.
Hi, I'm Zoe, and I cover all of our accessibility and disability inclusion PR at Google.
Thank you so much, guys. We're excited that you have joined us. And Lookout has been a product that we've been using for quite a while now. And how about you guys tell us a little bit about the history when we got started? I think we got started, was that in 2018? I want to say somewhere around 2018, but I don't remember. I like to be the historian, and sometimes I get my dates mixed up. If you guys have any of history of that, could you share that? Tell us when that was, or the process of doing it and what led you to doing so, and things like that.
Sure. I may see if Zoe can fill in any of the early days details. I was not on the team when it originally formed, but I can give you a bit of a feel for it. So I know we had our official 1.0 launch back in very early 2019. We've done a lot of work before then, though. And it kind of give you an idea of where it started. As you probably know, at Google, we're often trying to build products with and for people with disabilities, and really trying to leverage the power of technology to make the world more accessible and enabling folks with disabilities to have more options to live more independently if they wish. And the idea really started within the overall accessibility team. We're working on a lot of different projects with different groups that was trying to make the phone more accessible, or make apps more accessible, or kind of do things that were really intended to make the device itself more accessible, which is important and was great work. And then someone had the idea, well, what if we kind of turn that work outwards? What if we can make the physical world more accessible? What if we could use the camera and start looking around and trying to understand what's in the environment and providing information back to the user? And that was really kind of the inception, the big idea that kicked off Lookout. And that's kind of where we began. Zoe, did I leave anything important and juicy out of that?
No, you did not.
Great. Because I remember it was during one of those Google I.O.s, and they had mentioned something in passing to that effect, and we were all going gaga over it. And we had different ideas. We didn't know exactly what it was going to be like. And I think it was Sundar Pichai. I don't remember who it was that talked about it, and we were so excited about it. And we were just imagining, hey, I'm going to have like a phone on a lanyard around my neck, and I'm going around and trying to explore things and all of that. And so when it finally came, because I know then, there was a beta that was open to people to test and all of that. And then before it first came out to those of us in the US, and I think for those of us in the US, probably it came in late 2018. I don't remember, before it finally opened to the world. Maybe like as late as last year, wasn't it? I think so.
Yes. So last year was when our V2.0 launched. And that was really a big turning point for us for many reasons. But one thing you did allude to that you're exactly right about is we went from being really a kind of US and English focused application to trying to open it up to the world. We always wanted to do that. We wanted to support all users everywhere. But we really wanted to make sure we understood what people wanted and made sure we were doing a good job delivering before kind of crossing that bridge.
That's great. So guys, you have any questions for Zoe and Scot Adam?
One question I have got, we've got a range of experiences who listen to the podcast. Some people are just starting out with Android. Some people been using it for years. I just wonder if you could tell perhaps those newer to Android, what is Lookout?
Sure. That's a great question. So the easiest way to think of it is it's a talking camera. So Lookout is going to describe what it's seeing through the camera's lens. And we have a few different modes. So we have ways of recognizing text, either kind of brief incidental text or an entire document. We recognize US currency. We recognize packaged foods by their label or by their barcode. We know that barcodes can sometimes be hiding on different parts of packaging, so actually being able to recognize it by the barcode can be very helpful. And then last but not least, we also have what we call explore mode, which is the camera trying to describe what it's seeing. So in my environment, that might be a chair and a desk and a wall and a couch. And what we're trying to do here is give a bit more information and flexibility to our users. Many of them prefer to use Lookout with the screen reader that comes with Android, which is called TalkBack. So kind of between those two, we think we can enable a pretty exciting, rich experience for users, for people using Lookout.
Indeed. And, one of my favorite parts of the Lookout has to do with that instant text recognition, because all I do is simply point to a text, and it helps me when it comes to sorting my mail. And that's one of the features that I use the most when I use my Lookout. And it's a great product. I really like it. And most especially the document scanning is another good one. But like I said, the most important thing for me is that the exploration, using it to find things, or, something is in my way, I want to know what it is. Or the food label, Scott, that's probably one of my favorite ones too, because the food label helps me a lot. As a blind person, cooking, because there are days that the cooking falls on my shoulder, and using it to find my ingredients for the cooking. We got a lot of stuff in the pantry, and I don't want to grab dog food or something crazy like that to cook for my family. So I find it to be really interesting because it does not only tell me what it is, but it gives me other information that I probably didn't know was there. So I think for people that are looking for something to know exactly how to go about their eating habits, maybe you're on a diet or whatever, and you want to try to avoid certain things, I'm surprised that thing tells me like the content of the food and all of that. So I find that really helpful as OCR package in helping me figure out what my food has.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that. And it's exciting to hear, and we really were able to build this by getting a lot of direction feedback from the various testing groups and our partners who could help us understand, okay, what's easy about using packaged food, what's hard about that, what can we do to improve that? So that feature very much was inspired from and directed from folks like you saying, hey, barcodes are a good start, but what else can you do to make this a little bit easier, a little bit faster?
And as it is, I was thinking about this, Scott and Zoe, and I was kind of saying, hey, we got Lookout now, and I hope that, Google doesn't pull it down at some point. And if they do, maybe replace it with something else. But because, we know that, Google and you guys, I love you guys, don't misunderstand me, but you guys have the tendency of pulling down or throwing away stuff that we have come to love. And I hope that you don't pull Lookout down at some point.
Well, that's a great question. And we are absolutely committed to building products and services that can be truly helpful, improve people's lives, and enable more independence and empower our users. And I'm very excited about the opportunity. And we have a lot more to learn also. So that's kind of why I bring up this fact that we work so closely with folks who are blind, low vision, because we'll often come up with hypotheses on our team that we think, oh, maybe this will work, maybe that'll work. Here's a cool feature. And we found that sometimes things that are neat or cool ideas don't actually work the way people who are using the product want them to. And one thing that's really exciting about kind of doing this work is that discovery. And what's even cooler is as we make these discoveries, as we develop these features, we find time and again that features that were built for accessibility often become very useful outside of just those use cases. So like a very broad example would be something like captioning, which we don't do, but other products do. But that's useful for so many people. If I'm in a loud environment, that's useful for me. And going back to Lookout, I have typical site, but I've actually used Lookout's document mode often to copy and paste a bunch of text from a physical document. I actually find that to be the easiest way to do it. So kind of coming back to the overall question, like this is an area of like ongoing and increasing investment for us. We're really excited about that.
Talking about document mode, Scott, maybe this is more like a request. If we could have the ability to save, I know when one goes back into the history, it's kind of there, but it could be like a feature that we could save documents where I have a folder where I store all my scanned documents or, things like that, or choose a different folder on my phone to store such documents. And also, for us blind people, it's all about the TTS. Our last episode from last week is called That Raving TTS Engine. And for us, it's all about the TTS engines. And so for me, I have like multiple TTS voices, and I like the fact that I want to use a different TTS voice for a different job, like maybe if I'm doing scanning, and I want to use maybe a vocalizer TTS to do my lookout readouts or things like that. I think it would be nice if you guys look into that, because I think that's the missing feature on Lookout that we don't have. And it's a lot of Google products are like that, especially for us, the blind, and inclusively also that has to do with playbooks. And of late, I noticed that Playbooks uses those random voices from Google, which is nice. But we would love to see a capability where we could choose what TTS voice we want to use, or TTS engine, rather, we would like to use with Lookout. I think that would be nice.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. And I would say you are not the only person asking for that. So it's definitely something that we have had our eyes on.
In terms of another feature, with the Explore mode, I wonder if there'd been any calls for that to be able to take stills, so just to be able to shoot plain photos, because Android's not blessed with many accessible camera apps. Google Camera is, but obviously short of side loading, it's not available for all third-party phones, and then you're sort of down to whatever the manufacturer's done. But Lookout, if it could take stills, probably would be the most accessible camera app on any platform. I wondered if anyone had asked for that.
Interesting. So just to make sure I'm clear on the use case, this is the desire to take photos of any sort with better accessibility tools built into it.
Okay, so Edward is pointing at something, and it tells Edward, you are looking at XYZ, and therefore he wants to shoot that picture knowing he's shooting a picture of XYZ, and therefore knows that I just shot a picture of XYZ, and since Lookout recognizes it as XYZ, that label will then go on that picture that he just shot. So when he goes into his gallery, he's not going to be guessing and trying to find out, oh, where's that picture that I took of my dog or of that cool looking bench in the park. You know what I'm talking about? Is that not what you're talking about, Edward?
Labeling would be the nice to have. I think shooting the picture in the first place and labeling is a logical extension, because the ability to do that with most of the camera apps is limited, and Lookout probably gives the best description. So if it labeled it, all the better, but even to be able to shoot the still.
Yep, that's also one that we have heard before, and is another thing that we have very much on our radar. I realize I'm being a little bit vague about kind of what we might be working on when, but I need to be a little, leave a few more surprises in the bag.
So I've got 3 questions. One is, especially in India, phones are coming with these multi-cameras, 3 back cameras, 4 back cameras. Will Lookout make any improvement if multiple cameras are used, or can it use multiple cameras?
That's a great question. So overall, the performance should remain or improve over time. One thing we look at a lot is how does Lookout perform across a wide range of camera settings, and trying to make sure that we're optimizing for the best image quality coming into Lookout, so that we can then give better results on OCR, on object detection, etc. So we should play very well with the new multi-camera phones coming out.
So the second question is, does Lookout do, or is there any plan to launch the handwriting recognition in the future?
Again, it's a hot topic that is something very much on our radar. I can't say if we'll do it or not or when, but I can tell you it's definitely something that we've been keeping on our list.
Okay, the last question. Can you tell us some of the features that Lookout will come in the future? Some of the features that our listeners can stay tuned for?
Oh, I would love to. I can't do that, but I would absolutely love to. I will say that we are working on some things that we think are pretty exciting, and will move us in some pretty interesting directions. So without being able to give any direct notes, I think folks who are using Lookout will be happy that they are, and I'd say stay tuned on that.
Thanks. So one of the comment how I use Lookout, another use case is I work in the IT department in our office, and when we have to start servers, it takes we have very old servers, so it takes 5 minutes or 7 minutes for the server to boot. So what I do is I use Lookout, and after some time I just go to the screen and do a document recognition or text recognition and see what the booting process is saying. Is there any error, or is it going? I use it for that.
That's fascinating. That's a great idea.
Yeah.
That's a great use, Austin. I use that too, like when I'm setting up something that doesn't have speech. And I can't tell you how many times that thing has saved my bacon. I'm telling you. So it's a very useful feature, especially that text mode, because it changes with real time. If the screen changes, you want to know what has changed. And so that totally makes sense. And to comment about Austin's second question, Scott, I would love to see when we'll have that handwritten recognition. But then, Google Lens does that. It's something that it kind of goes under the radar. I would love to see us talking more and more about Google Lens. And I think we're going to be focusing on that in our upcoming episode when we talk about OCR packages this weekend, because Google Lens is an unsung hero that needs to be mentioned. It does a lot of things, and all that handwritten recognition is right there in Google Lens. And I always find myself saying, hey, it'll be so neat to see Lookout kind of bundle that feature from Lens or whatever it takes. I happen to be one of those that believe that, Google can do anything. So I'm kind of optimistic that we'll have that down the road sometimes, but it's there in Lens. And if one has to use something for handwritten recognition, that could be something to use, because, Scott, I'm thinking of a student in a classroom and someone is writing something on a chalkboard, and they could use that to read that stuff. And with its current implementation, it has to be a printed text. But if we have handwritten recognition, that would be huge, because I think that's where apps like InVision and Sullivan Plus kind of have that edge over Lookout.
They do some fine work, and we are definitely looking at areas that we want to do similar things, and areas where we may go in a bit of a different direction. But yes, I'd say your feedback from all of you is loud and clear on that one.
Thank you so much. Scott and Zoe, thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to chat about Lookout.
No, absolutely. Thank you for the opportunity. This has been a lot of fun. And anytime you'd like to, we'd be happy to do it again.
Well, great. So how about when some new things happen, we're going to have you come back again and let's talk about those new things and reflect on what we talked about a while ago. And now here we are talking about some new things. How about we do that again? Zoe, are you in?
That sounds terrific. We'd love to.
All right. Good. Thank you
Sounds
so
great.
much. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Have a great day, and thanks again for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Great. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Well, that was a really interesting session from a couple of weeks ago. What do you think, Warren?
It was a beautiful sit down that we had together with Scott and Zoe. It was excellent. These are the guys from the Lookout department, and I am glad they got to sit down with us and talk about Lookout and some of the things that they may be bringing in the future. They're working on it. It's a work in progress. And so, like we've seen, Lookout sits there on top of that hill, and it's always been my go-to scanning app for quite a while now, and I'm looking forward to when other different modes come to the Lookout app.
What I'm really looking forward to with OCR apps as well, Lookout included, is when scene descriptions get slightly better. I think at the minute I'll be charitable and call it a proof of concept rather than gimmicky. But you look at photo descriptions and scenes, and where it says stuff like may contain one person and sky. I don't really know what I'm supposed to do with that. I mean, it's kind of interesting and better than the photo descriptions we used to have. I think I've thought about how I think it probably needs to get better, and I think it needs to get better at understanding the relation between different things in the picture. So I don't think at the minute it's describing what a sighted person would see when they look at the photo. I mean, I'm sure AI will get there, but I think that's where I want to see things like Lookout and the other scene description apps that we've looked at, albeit not strictly speaking OCR.
A good observation, sure. And, some of these things, do we have a capability of getting there? I think that we could. Now I'm not deluding myself here. There's certain things that I'm not sure that we could actually really achieve what the regular seeing eye does, But I'm thinking that somehow we're moving in that direction, and one of these days, definitely, we're going to have very accurate description or whatever is going on. I am such an optimist, so I'm thinking we will get there. Right now, though, it's sometimes a little bit iffy.
Let me give you an example of what I would like it to do. So, Montreal Canadiens got to the Stanley Cup final against the Golden Knights the other day. If you had a picture after that game with a Montreal Canadiens fan who had checked into the stadium, it would probably say something like, one person's sports stadium, maybe a Get Sports jersey. That would be it. What it should probably try and do is see what sports stadium it is, see what sports jersey it is, see when the picture was taken, see what the score was, and try and determine that person's mood based on that picture. So Montreal Canadian fans ridiculously happy because he's got to the Stanley Cup final for the first time in 28 years, rather than picture may contain person in sports stadium, jersey, sky.
Exactly, and that's the type of thing I'm talking about. That body language or facial expression, all of those things. I'm not sure, with our OCR packages, artificial intelligence, catch up in this field or not. These are some of the things.
But it should use the relational data. So if they've checked into the sports stadium and they're wearing the colours that Canadians play in, it could check both of those things. It doesn't need exclusively to rely on the facial expression, I don't think. I think it should be able to use relational outlying factors to make a bit of a judgment call.
Yeah. Well, we'll see what happens. But for now, if you live alone and have material that you need to be read and all of that, you could use one of these and come up with a nice result, and including Sullivan Plus, by the way, if you have internet access. So all of these that we tried, all will do well, really, when it comes to think of it. All of them would do well. Some would need internet access, and while others wouldn't need internet access. So it depends on your situation, where you're at, and all of that. Then make that choice accordingly to suit that particular situation or that need.
Indeed. And I want to reset the moral compass. You might not live alone. You just might want to hide things from your sighted spouse. Not saying you should, but obviously you can.
Yeah, and there are some things that you don't want someone to read for you, and I don't want to be over reliant on either my kids or my spouse or my friend. So this, whether you live alone or don't live alone, it is good to be able to help yourself, and I've always championed that part, that whatever I can do for myself, I don't go asking my wife to help me with it, because I don't want to get her, kind of stressed out after a while, overworked. It's just no good. If I can help myself, I'll do it. I will only ask my wife if everything else fails. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
That's how I do it.
Yeah, that's what I tend to do as well.
Yeah.